All right, today we're going to be taking a look at how to replace the spider arm on a front load LG washer just like this. The spider arm is the rear drum support that attaches to the back of your drum. And the shaft of it is what goes through the back half of your outer tub where the bearings are housed, and it actually connects to the rotor to be able to spin your machine. I did make another video like this about 5 or 6 months ago. That one showed how to do a spider arm replacement on a much older, smaller capacity machine that used a different type of spider arm, one that looks more like this. And really the only major difference between the two of them is how they connect to the back of your tub. On the one that I did before, the screws screw through the side of it and directly into the spider arm here. Whereas the one that we are working on today, the screws go through the top of the spider arm and they screw down through the back of the drum into the baffles, which are the little tumblers for your clothes on the inside of the tub. Now, unfortunately, most spider arms are made with a cheap, low-grade alloy cast metal. And honestly, because they're such cheap quality parts, they don't interact very well with the chemicals from your laundry detergent. And those chemicals over time, they actually break down the metal. And what you'll see is eventually it will get cracks in the arm, or the arms themselves will completely break. Now, I actually haven't opened up this machine at all yet, so I don't know exactly for sure how bad it is. But my experience tells me that based on a few things that I'm seeing, it's not showing signs of them being completely broken. Like I said, more than likely just a small crack somewhere. And so let me show you exactly how I can tell. Now, sometimes having a broken spider arm can be completely obvious. You'll hear loud clunking when it spins. You can sometimes tell how bad it is by grabbing the drum and jiggling it up and down or left to right, and it'll be super loose. When it's like that, like I said, when it spins, your machine is just going to make loud clunking noises, right? But this one doesn't do that. And that's just because there are different varying levels as to how broken your spider arm actually is. But it's important that you know how to look for these signs, because if you can catch it early on, and then you can save yourself from a lot more damage, because as time goes on, it just will continue to get worse, and it can potentially break even more things inside of your machine. And the reason that I know that the spider arm isn't broken off is that when I spin the drum, there's no clunking. It does make a little bit of a rubbing noise, but what I do notice, and I'll spin it here again in just a second and get a closer look with the camera, is right here. We want to look at the gap between the tub and the boot seal. And as it spins, what you're going to see is that that gap is going to get bigger and smaller as it spins. And it shouldn't do that. It should stay about the same at all times. When it does that and it goes bigger, smaller, it means that the tub is actually wobbling, and that wobble is created because one of those arms is cracked. We're going to get a closer look. And now I want you to watch this gap again, like I was just saying, as I spin it. And you can see how much the tub is wobbling. We can also do a further visual inspection by taking the boot seal right here and pulling it back. And I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but this right here where my finger is pointing is actually a little groove that this tub is creating inside of the boot seal, because it's rubbing on it. Now, eventually you might end up smelling burnt rubber or even get some smoke, because this tub spins at close to 1200 RPMs at the full speed. And so that tub rubbing on this boot seal is going to cause it to eat through this. And like I said, it could potentially smoke or smell like burnt rubber. So let's go ahead and start opening it up and take a look and see what we're dealing with. All right, we're going to come to the back of the machine. And the first thing that we want to do is remove the lid. If you look, you'll see two plastic tabs, one right here and one right here. We need to remove the screw that is on the bottom on both of those, right here and right here. Once you've done that, you want to come back to the front of the machine, grab the lid, you want to push back. It'll slide a little bit, and then you can lift it right off. If you look at the back side of the control panel, there's one screw right here that we need to remove. The next few minutes of the video will be me doing a voiceover because my audio cut out. Here, you're going to pull out the drawer. And to take it out completely, you're going to press down on this little tab right here, and then you can just pull it out towards you. We want to remove these two screws that hold the detergent dispenser housing in place. And to come down here, and you want to pop this little door down, and you can pull it off. You want to remove this screw right here, and then pull this little hose down. Just pop it out of the little holder. And sometimes there will be another screw right here. On this machine there isn't, but if you do have one there, you just want to go ahead and unscrew that one as well, and then you can pull this little plastic piece out. And then there will be one more screw right here that you want to remove. Next, we want to remove this user interface panel. You're going to look over the top and you'll see the wires right here. You just want to undo these little plastic clips that are securing them in place. And then once you've got those out, you just separate the clips by pressing down and pulling apart. To take the user interface panel off, you're going to take the tips of your fingers and just kind of work it right up underneath the backside of that board and work your fingers all the way across. Now, sometimes this will come off pretty easy. I start to loosen it right there. Other times it can be pretty difficult to get off. If you're having a hard time getting it off, then what you can do is you can take a flathead screwdriver like I have here and just work it right up under the edge of the panel and just kind of pop it up, and you can go all the way across. And as you do, you'll feel it. It'll just kind of pop off just like that. And then you can completely remove it. You want to open up the door. And next, we're going to remove the ring that holds the boot seal in place. If you take a look right here, when I peel this back, you'll see the little metal ring in there. I'm going to take that same flathead screwdriver and just work it right up underneath that ring and then pull it out towards you until it pops off completely. Now that that's off, we want to go ahead and remove the front panel. And the front panel is held in place by a handful of screws. On this one, there's 4 screws. Some machines will have 5, some will have 6, but how many ever screws are there, you just want to go ahead and remove all of them. Next, we want to push the boot seal through the other side of the door or the opening for the front panel. And once you have that all the way through, you can lean the panel towards you. I'm just shooting it from the side here because when I pull it back, I'm trying to give you a good shot of the door switch that is located right here. There's a wire running to it. You just want to disconnect that wire by pushing in on the little tab that is on the end of it and then pulling downwards. And like I said, that will disconnect the wire from the door switch. Now you can lean the front panel completely forward towards you and then pull it right off. Next, we want to remove this metal panel. And we've got 2 screws here and 2 screws here that we want to remove. And then there's a screw on the top side on the right that we want to take out. And then over on the left-hand side on the top, there's 1 more. And once you have all those screws out, you can just pull up on it and pull it off. Now, this one doesn't have any hoses running to the top of the boot seal right here, but some models do. Some will also have them running down onto the sides of the boot seal. So any hoses that are connected to the boot seal, you want to go ahead and disconnect those. We want to disconnect this hose right here. It's held in place with a Phillips screw. You can just use your bit, unscrew it, and then it'll pull off like that. Next, you want to take your detergent housing, push back on it, and then you can tilt it backwards like that. And we want to remove the clamp that holds that hose in place. You just unscrew it and then disconnect it from the back of the housing for the detergent dispenser. And then there's 1 more hose at the top of your tub that you want to disconnect. That runs from the top of your drain to the machine. So just pull that one off. You go to the back of the machine and we want to take this panel off, and there are 4 screws that hold it in place that I am pointing to right now. Just to go ahead and take those out, and then you can pull the panel right off. There is another thin hose that is running to the back of the tub. You want to disconnect that. You want to unscrew this wire right here. It's a green and yellow wire. It's just a ground screw, so take that out. And now we're looking at the shock absorber. And the shock absorber is held in place by this little plastic pin. And this is what it looks like. You can see right here that it has like a little tab on it. And so when you insert that pin, that tab will press down. And then once it pops out the other side, it comes up and it stops the pin from being able to pull out. And what you're going to want to do is use a 13 millimeter deep socket nut driver and slip that over the end of the pin. And when you do that, it'll press in on that little tab and allow you to pull it out the other side. Now, this pin was actually in backwards, and so I couldn't use the nut driver. I had to use my finger to press in on the tab. while I use the pair of channel locks to pull it out the other way. But under normal circumstances, you would use that 13 millimeter deep socket. Now, if you look down here in the bottom of the machine, you'll see this wire harness is held in place by a zip tie. Just want to take a pair of cutters and cut that zip tie, and then you can pull the wire harness out towards you. It's got a little plastic baggie and a twist tie. Just undo that and then pull the plastic back, and it'll expose these two wires. Unclip the white one first. It's really easy to do by hand. And then the blue one, it's a little bit more difficult. Most of the time, I'll have to use a flathead screwdriver and then just kind of poke up underneath right there and then separate it. Now you can just pull your shock down and out towards you so that it's completely disconnected from the tub. Next step is going to be to remove these two counterweights. You have the one up top and the one down here, and each one of them is held in place with 4 screws. And to take those out, you want to use a 10 millimeter nut driver. Once you have those out, you can go ahead and just remove the top counterweight as well as the bottom one. Next, we'll come to the bottom of the tub and we're going to remove any connections that are down here. Now, do keep in mind that not all LG front load washers are exactly the same. So your connections might look like this. They might look a little bit different, but whatever you have going on down here, you just want to disconnect everything. So for this one, we're going to start over here and we're going to disconnect this clip. And then we want to cut this zip tie right here so that we can remove these wires completely. Disconnect this yellow one and this red one. Last but not least will be this ground wire right here. And again, we're going to use the same 10 millimeter deep socket to take it off. Now, once you take off this nut, this is a very important part. You take this wire off and there's another nut back here. Sometimes when you're loosening this one, you can accidentally loosen this one as well. If this one is loose, when you put your machine back together, it will allow it to leak from where this heating element goes into the tub. So just take your drill and screw it in and make sure that it is tightened down all the way. And then so that you don't lose your nut, I just put it right back on and screw it on about halfway. Right here will be the hose that runs from the bottom of your tub to your drain pump. And we're going to take off this clamp, remove this hose, but you'll probably want to put a towel down underneath it because your washer does always hold about half a cup of water. So as soon as we disconnect that, that water is going to pour out. And now the last thing that we want to do down here is we want to remove the 2 pins that hold the last 2 shock absorbers in place. So we'll take that 13 millimeter deep socket and we'll start with the shock absorber on the right hand side. We're going to take this and slip it over the back of the pin and you'll hear it lock in place. And then you can use your channel locks and just pull it right out. Push the shock absorber over. And then we're going to come to the shock absorber on the left-hand side. Again, take that deep socket, slip it over the back of it. And of the two, this one can be a little bit trickier to get out for some reason. I always kind of push back on it while I use my channel locks to pull the pin out. And then remove the shock from the tub. And now that we've got everything disconnected, when you let go, your tub is going to kind of swing forward towards you. Everything is now completely disconnected and we are almost ready to remove the entire drum. Take a look at the top of the machine. You'll see that the last thing holding this in place is going to be these 2 springs right here. And the springs are locked in by these 2 little plastic tabs. I'll give you a closer look. This is the one that's on the left-hand side. You're just going to take a pair of channel locks and pull that tab out and just kind of tuck it up underneath here. And then you're going to do the same thing to the one on the right-hand side. Now we can remove our tub. I do definitely recommend putting on a pair of gloves. A lot of this metal in here is sharp, so you can cut your hands up. This can be pretty heavy for most people. So if you have a helper or an extra set of hands, again, I would recommend that as well. I can do it by myself. I do it all the time, but it's not something that I would recommend you do on your own unless you're confident that you can. Now I'm going to take it out and I will just lift up on one side, take one out, and then lift up on the other, take it out, and then pull drum completely outwards. And then you can take these springs off. Each one of them just hooks through a hole right here, and like I said, they come off pretty easy. Okay, so I've got the drum sitting on its back now, and I do want to point something out before we take the rest of this apart. If you take a look right here, I'm going to zoom in on this. This right here is an area where the inner drum has been rubbing against this outer tub, and it has actually eaten right through it. If you ended up doing this replacement and just put this back on, then your machine is going to leak water every single time that you run a load. And this is a prime example of what can happen if your machine breaks and you continue to use it. It just makes things worse in the long run. So you want to do a visual inspection. Take a look all the way around and see if you see anything like this. Sometimes it'll actually be out on the side of the tub or on the top of it. This front half of the outer drum is the most vulnerable because that's where all the wobbling is occurring. And if yours is torn up like that, then honestly, at this point, I would say you're probably better off just getting another machine, because the amount of money that it's going to cost you now to do this repair is going to be more than it's worth. Not only would you still have to buy the spider arm and replace it, but you would end up having to replace this front half of the outer tub. And even though it's just plastic, they are pretty pricey. Now for me, because this is what I do for a living, I do have a spare one. So after we're done with the repair, I'm going to go ahead and replace this as well. If yours looks like it's in good condition, then we'll move on to the next step. And that's going to be disconnecting the front half of this outer tub from the back half. And if you look, you'll see that there are a bunch of screws all the way around that keep it connected together. And again, we're going to use the same 10mm deep socket. With all those screws out, now you can grab the front half of that tub and just pull it straight up and off. All right, so I've turned this over so that you can see from the inside what it looks like. And all of this ring right here that looks like it's all dug out and it's black, this is where that inner tub has been rubbing on the outer tub, and you can actually see some daylight coming through it. So this part is no longer usable. Now we're going to flip it over. This is the rotor that goes over the stator, which is the motor for this whole system. It is held in place by this nut. This nut actually screws into the spindle of the spider arm. You want to use a 17mm nut driver to remove it. Then you just want to take your fingertips and stick it up under both sides, wiggle it until it pops off. Now from here, you might be lucky enough to be able to just grab this outer assembly, pull up on it, and have it come completely off of the inner tub. It's kind of a 50-50 split. Sometimes that does come right off, and other times it's not so easy. So let's try it. This one popped right off. But if yours doesn't come off that easy, then what you can do is turn your machine on its side, and then you can grab a sledgehammer. This one is a 4-pound one, and you want to hit this spider arm. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say that you want to be very careful doing this, because if you hit the spindle of the spider arm too hard, you can flatten it down and it will make it impossible to get your rotor to go back over it later on. But if you know for certain that your spider arm is broken, then you can go ahead and you can just smack it as hard as you want. And then you can grab the drum from the front and separate the two. This is what our spider arm looks like, and just as I suspected, it is cracked. It's actually cracked in multiple places, and I would have thought that as bad as this one is, that by now it would have been, making clunky noises when it was spinning. It would have been a little bit more obvious, but it just goes to show that sometimes you never know. You can see right here, it's cracked all the way across. There's a chunk missing here. There's some chunks missing back here. There's another crack going across this arm and one going across here. So there isn't one place where it has completely broken and separated, but this one was pretty close. A little bit more use and it probably would have just fallen to pieces. This is what I was talking about earlier as well, with the quality of this metal that they use. Unfortunately, it's just a poor quality, and the chemicals that are in your laundry detergent just kind of eat away at this. And you can see, it's pitted in lots of areas. There used to be a little raised lip right here. It's completely worn down. So this one definitely needs to be replaced. You can see what holds it in place are a total of 6 screws, 2 on each arm. And to take those out, again, we go back to the 10 millimeter nut driver. Now that I've taken all those screws out, when I go to lift this up, it probably will fall apart. And yep, you can see it's now in 3 pieces. So we'll chuck those. This is all the gunk that has built up underneath that spider arm over the years. So we just want to go ahead and give this a good cleaning. We've got all that off there, and before I put the new spider arm on, I just want to let you know that this machine isn't going to be resold, so I'm not going to be cleaning this drum. But I do want to point out that if ever you wanted the opportunity to clean your drum, this is the time to do it. You can see how dirty and grimy they get over time as I spin this around. You don't even need to use any kind of cleaning solvent. Just water and an SOS pad will get it clean. And one of the best ways to avoid this from happening to your outer drum is 2 things. Don't use fabric softener. Fabric softener is one of the worst things that you can do to your machine. It doesn't all get washed away after the cycle is done, and it builds up on this outer tub. And believe it or not, this one is actually not that bad. A lot of the times this is super thick. It's slimy, grimy. So avoid using fabric softener, and then get yourself some washing machine cleaning tablets. There isn't any one particular brand that works better than the other, in my opinion. I've used lots of them. I'll put a link for several of them that I have used in the description, but I highly recommend that once you have cleaned this completely, to go ahead and get yourself some of those and use them regularly to prevent this from happening again. Now we've got our brand new spider arm. We're going to go ahead and just set it down on here, and you want to line it up with the holes in the tub. The part number for this spider arm is 443RER0002. They are available on Amazon. There are lots of different sellers. I'll try to find the cheapest one that I can, and I'll put a link for it in the description so that if you need it, you can click on that and go ahead and purchase it. Go ahead and stick your screws back in and get them screwed all the way down. And you want to pick your outer tub back up, flip it over, and just slip the bearing part right over the spider arm until it goes all the way down. Grab your rotor and put it back on there. Push it down. You're going to take that nut that held it in place, get it started. That same 17 millimeter nut driver that we were using earlier, screw it down. Now we've got the back part done. You want to flip it back over. That is the old front half of the tub that was broken, and this is going to be the replacement that we're going to put on. If your machine has this heating element right here, you just want to make sure that this part right here slips right through this metal bar when you're putting it back on. Once you've got it slipped over, you just want to make sure that all the holes line up all the way around, and then we can re-secure this by putting all the screws back. Now we can screw them in, and I will go around one full time screwing them in most of the way, and then go around a second time, just kind of finishing off, tightening them down. Now we're ready to reinstall the actual drum back onto the machine. But before we do that, I do want to mention that while you have your machine open like this, I highly recommend replacing your shock absorbers. You can go on Amazon and get a pack of 3. They're going to take wear and tear over time, and putting new ones on is just going to increase the performance of your machine going forward. So I will put a link for these in the description. You definitely want to get you some. And it's much easier to do if the tub isn't in your way. We're going to go ahead and replace these. We're going to start again with the 13 millimeter deep socket. Just slip it over the pin of each one and remove it. Super simple. Take your old shocks out. Take your replacements. Go ahead and stretch it out just a little bit. Slip it between the 2 plastic pieces down here. For the ones in the front right here, LG puts the pin through the front. I like to put it through the back coming towards the front. It just makes it easier to hammer back in place. It does not matter which way you go. Once those are in, just push them all the way up and out of the way. Go ahead and scoot your tub as close to your machine as you can and get the bottom of it facing towards you, and that's going to be down here where the connections were. Grab your springs. You can see that both of these springs have hooks on them. For the one that's going to be on the right hand side, you want to take the hook that's on the bottom and you're going to come through this hole right here from the back to the front of the machine. And on the left-hand side of the machine, you want to do the opposite. You want the hook to come in through the front and go out the back. And then we're going to pick up the drum by those springs, and we're going to put the hooks right into these little slots right here, right above these white plastic pieces. Now, this part is always a little bit tricky for me to get you a good camera angle to be able to see exactly what I'm doing, just because my body gets in the way. But like I said, you're just going to grab the springs, lift up, walk it in, and see how you've got this spring with the hook facing towards the right and this hook is facing towards the left. And just get one side in and then the other side and set it down. Take this white plastic clip and slip it over and lock it in place, as well as on the opposite side. You want to push the tub backwards and then take one of your shock absorbers, and you're just going to take the top part of it and slip it through these two plastic pieces right here. And you're going to line up the hole from the shock absorber with these holes. Insert your pin, and then you can use a hammer to hammer the rest in. And then we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Reconnect this hose and then clamp it back down. Remove the nut that we left on there. Your yellow wire is going to go to the connection on the right hand side. The red is going to go to the one on the left. Your green ground goes in the middle. Make sure that it gets screwed in until it's tightened all the way down. And then the last connection down here is going to be this little clip. You slip your counterweights back on and screw them back in. Come back to the back of the machine and slip this shock absorber in and get that pin back in there. Reconnect this hose. Grab your ground wire right here and screw it back into this hole. And then take the two plugs here and reconnect them. And don't forget to pull the plastic back down over them and wrap it back up so that you don't get them wet if you ever have a leak in the future. Back to the top of the machine, and you want to reconnect this hose. As well as this skinny one right here. It just slips right back over the plastic coming out of the top of the machine. Flip the housing for the detergent dispenser back towards you. And then you're just going to reconnect this hose to the back of it. I'm just going to slip it on. Make sure it's on there nice and tight. And then you can screw it down to secure it back in place. If you look at the side of this, it has these little plastic tabs. They insert into these holes right here in the metal on the side of the machine. So you'll just put them in there and then it slides forward. Next, we're going to put the panel back on. And if you look on the back side of it, it actually has like a little metal tab or a hook on both ends. And those are going to go right into these slits right here. Two screws are going to go right here. One through the top. And then we switch to the other side. Two right here. As well as one on top. Once that's in place, just grab the dispenser and you want to make sure that this slips through the metal, and it'll come through about probably a half an inch to where it's sticking out. Grab your front panel, pick it up, and on the bottom of your panel, there's going to be 3 slits. And if you look right here, there's 3 pieces of metal that come up, and those are going to go through those slits. Just kind of put it in at an angle. Then you want to reach over the top and grab this wire harness and reconnect it to your door switch. Just make sure that you push it in all the way, push the panel forward, and then re-secure it. You want to take the wires from your user interface board, slip them through this hole right here, get it lined up, and then you can just kind of pop it back in place. To put the dispenser back in, there's nothing special to it. You just push it all the way in. Don't forget about this screw that helps hold the user interface panel in place over here. And then come over the top again and just reconnect the wires that run to your user interface board. Once you've got those connected, just put them back into these little twisty clips and tie those up so they're not moving around when your machine is in the spin cycle. The last thing we have to do now is just to pull this boot seal back through the front. And then you'll see that there is a little metal lip right here. And what you want to do is take the tips of your fingers, grab the boot seal, and then just work it over that lip. You want to go all the way around. Now, once you've done that, you just want to take your fingers all the way around again and make sure that it's nice and flush. This part right here is something that most people struggle with, and that's getting this ring back on to secure the boot seal in place. Now, there is a trick to it that makes this really easy, and I'll show you in just a second. If you don't want to do it the way that I'm showing, you can go on Amazon and buy what they call a tub spring expansion tool. And it's just a tool that allows you to grab the spring down here on both ends. As you squeeze the grip of the tool, it spreads this and makes it a little bit easier to go on. I'll put a link for that in the description. It runs roughly about $10, but you don't need that. Okay, what you want to do is you want to offset this spring just right of center at the bottom, and then work the ring about halfway on the top and bottom. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a pair of needle nose pliers and you're going to grab the left hand side just left of that spring, and I'm going to put all of my weight into it going towards the left. And as I do that, I'm going to use my left hand to just work in the remainder of the spring. So essentially all I'm doing is using my weight to stretch that spring and then work the rest of it in. Just like that. Just takes a couple of seconds. We're going to take a closer look down here at the gap between the inner tub and the boot seal so you can see what it looks like. You can see that the gap looks pretty uniform all the way around. And then I'm going to spin it by hand, and I just want you to watch. See, now there's no more wobble to it. And again, that gap stays pretty consistent throughout the entire time. Again, it's a very involved repair, and it is time consuming, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. And I hope that I've been able to do a good enough job of walking you through step by step so that you are confident enough that it is something that you can do on your own. Anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. As always, I definitely appreciate it. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.